Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. On today's show, we're asking the question, what is the no-sale auto auction, and why do we care as real estate investors? The world of real estate is highly dependent on borrowing and liquidity. It all comes down to the affordability that banks and major lenders can offer. But banks lend in multiple areas. There's consumer credit, there's subprime credit, real estate credit, automotive credit, commercial credit, and on and on. The auto industry, like real estate, is highly driven by credit markets. During the pandemic, dealers were getting credit authorizations for all kinds of insane financing. A buyer with a 650 credit score could get approved for a loan to cover 100% of the value of the car, plus the sales tax, plus the extended warranty, plus rust proofing, plus prepaid oil changes, and on and on. By the time the buyer walked off the lot, they'd signed paperwork for a loan at 130% and in some cases 150% of the car's value with a $1,000 a month car payment. And during the pandemic, when they were collecting their stimi checks from the government and staying at home, putting more money in their bank account than when they were going to work, everything seemed rosy. And some realized fairly quickly they could not afford the car payment, and they asked their lender for forbearance under the emergency COVID legislation to protect consumers. So today, the auto industry is sitting on a ton of bad loans that were originated during the pandemic. Lucky Lopez is a car dealer in Vegas who I follow regularly, and he shares a ton of industry knowledge that is current from the perspective of someone who's in the trenches on a daily basis. So here's what's happening. A car loan goes bad, the lender repossesses the car, assuming there isn't a moratorium on repossession, and then they try and sell it at auction. The retail value of that car might be, say, $35,000. The wholesale value might be $31,000. The dealer offers the proper wholesale value for the car, and then the auctioneer says no sale. The lender has put a reserve price in place of $35,000, and they need $35,000 for that car because the loan is underwater. The car is worth less than the loan. But then other sellers observe the reserve price on that car that didn't sell, and they too set their price higher to reflect the perception that the value might indeed be higher. So there's a lot of cars that are not selling. Today, many dealers and banks are selling less than 40% of their vehicles at the weekly auction. Some auctions are reporting that less than half of the cars are not selling at all in the dealer auctions, and that's a problem. Those cars are going to sit in inventory until the lender gets desperate enough to sell at a fair price. That congestion in the auction system is a symptom of a problem, but it's a symptom that many in the industry are misinterpreting. Much of this is not being reported to the public. It's like a game of hot potato with bad paper. So here's some meaningful statistics. 1 out of every 4 loans originated during the pandemic is 30 days late, and 1 out of 6 is 90 days late. These numbers are worse than 2008. The default rate in 2008 was 14% for the auto industry overall. And today, the default rate across all credit ratings is 13.56%. Even prime customers, who are theoretically the best borrowers. Traditionally, the default rate for prime borrowers is 1 to 2%, and today default rates have more than doubled. So we keep hearing that the economy is just fine. And the truth is, banks have been laying off loan originators and hiring people in collections in their place. The size of the auto industry is driven by demand, and demand is driven by affordability. I mean, seriously, how many people can truly afford to spend $80,000 to $100,000 on a pickup truck? And yet there's still a lot of them on the road. Banks ultimately determine how many cars sell each month and at what value. It's all about credit. The missteps of the last couple of years are clearly visible to anyone who's paying attention. As banks are taking more losses, they're changing loan terms and reducing the credit available. The entire auto industry has sales volumes being determined by the whims of the banks. There are headlines about falling demand for Teslas, and for the first time Tesla is having to discount their cars. I understand, Tesla makes a great car, but it's expensive. A lot of Tesla owners do buy them with cash, and financing for Tesla is far below industry averages. The 2 Tesla models that make up the most financed electric vehicles last year were the Model 3 at 36.62% and the Model Y at 34.18%. If you compare that with the entire auto industry, 84% of new vehicle purchases are financed in some way, and 40% of used vehicle purchases are financed. This tells us very clearly that the bulk of the auto industry requires debt in order to function. It's not that different from real estate. We saw that when there was a lending crisis in the early 2000s that finally blew up in 2008, lenders stopped lending for a period of time, and that lack of liquidity caused a precipitous drop in property values, as the majority of buyers that were left in the market were only the cash buyers. And now the auto industry, which is not the largest industry, it's actually real estate, everything related to it, construction, renting, and leasing, is the largest industry. But the same undisciplined subprime lending practices that led to the great financial crisis in 2008 have been showing up in the auto industry the last couple of years. The major automotive groups like Cox Automotive, they've got a vested interest in maintaining the narrative that cars are scarce and there's a shortage. The profit goes to the dealers in those instances. But the truth is that inventories have normalized. Inventories of used vehicles are growing rapidly. And lenders are doing their best to unload tens of thousands of repossessed vehicles each week without flooding the market, so they're holding some of them back. All of this in an effort to delay the inevitable. Industry insiders know what's going on and they're hiding it from the general public. Even the lenders have a vested interest. If prices fall further in the used market, which they already have and almost certainly will, it has the effect of multiplying the loan losses the lenders will experience. And since the auto industry makes up 3% of GDP in the U.S., it's hard to avoid the scope of impact that this one sector will have on the economy. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.